Hello, and it's Thursday, and it's 11 o'clock, and we're flipping back and forth in terms of our times these days because we're meeting up with different people in different time zones, so a little earlier than we were last week. And we're going to talk about the technical stuff. We've been talking about some of the emotional, the passions, the teaching stuff the last couple of weeks, and now we're going to delve a little bit more into the practical details, which are an equally important part of running your teaching business. And I know for some of us, the idea that we have a business is a little bit challenging. It took me a long time to get my head wrapped around the fact that there's a business to teaching if you want to have people to teach to, and if you want to organize your money and your schedule and your time. And back in the day when I started, nobody had websites. We just had, word of mouth, and things have changed an awful lot in the last 20 years. And so I think particularly for some of us who've come to movement as a second career and hi, sorry. I'm being a cat nana at the moment, and so the cat has just jumped up on my lap. And so I don't know if there's anybody else out there like me, but I getting a website going was a bit challenging, and getting a newsletter list was something I resisted for a long time. And I'm sure I did that partly because just getting it all set up was a challenge. And so Roland has agreed to come and bring his expertise to the table today. And Roland and I met, okay, help me out here, Roland. Was it 8 years ago?
It's got to be 8 years ago in Ventura.
Yeah.
Right, when we both went through our res week.
Yeah.
Restorative exercise training.
Yeah. So we were co-residents in our house. We had the best house. We had the coolest house.
The best house, yeah.
It was totally the best house. It had you and Galena in it. And at the time, you had a full-time day job. You were a tech dude, and you were also a coach, and you were doing your restorative exercise training, which makes you one of the busier people that I know. Do you want to talk about how you've kind of made that transition from full-time tech guy, side hustle coach to full-time coach and author and all of the other things that you are?
Absolutely, sure. Yeah, so way back then, I worked for a Fortune 500 company, Xerox, and I was a technical person there. I was a teacher, so I trained people how to use equipment, both trained the people who used the equipment, but I also trained programmers behind the scenes to put processes in place and systems. So integrating fancy printers, like these are huge printers, right? Big printers, and the document management systems that handle the documents and organize them and distribute them for printing and for viewing and things like that. So I was very technical on that side, and I was also like standing in front of people and training and creating documentation and all that. So I really enjoyed that. But if you know my background, I was also very passionate about health and wellness and fitness, and I grew up overweight. And my first 35 years, I was yo-yo dieting, and I got to the point where at one point I decided to sort of take control of my life and lost 110 pounds. And
which is amazing.
Yeah, and it's been 18 years, 18 years of I don't know what you call it, fit. Let's call it fit. 18 years of
healthy,
fit and not healthy, not overweight. And yeah, so I got so passionate about that I decided, I was blogging about it and writing. I eventually met Galena, and we wrote a book together,
and the world became a better place.
I know, right? And so, yeah, so a few books later, and building a website and our email list and social media and all that, and I just got so passionate about it. People started to ask me also for help. Like, how can I do these things? So I started helping them one-on-one and doing consulting for them, because it was very similar. I did very similar types of things for small businesses when I worked for Xerox. So we didn't just sell our equipment to huge corporations. We sold them to little like mom and pop print shops on the street, on the corner. And they wanted to get, like, how can I get my business online? Because online was starting to go, and people wanted to order their and upload their prints. Everyone can do that now. You go to Staples and you can just email it to them, and then you go in there and it's done, right? So, but back then you couldn't. So I helped them do those types of things, and I helped them set up email lists, and even got invited to be a blogger and to do email for Xerox, because Xerox wasn't doing it back then. So I helped introduce that, and so that was super exciting. So the last couple of years, I've been, sort of splitting my as a health coach. I no longer work for Xerox, so a health coach, and then helping both other authors like me and other health professionals like me as well get their websites and email lists, like all that stuff that I just mentioned, like get their we call it a platform. So it's an author platform, or your fitness professional or wellness professional platform, your yoga teacher platform, whatever. That's like all those things encompass your platform.
So what exactly comprises a platform? So you've got a website, you've got a newsletter list. Are there other components to? I know those are the things that we're going to talk about specifically, but are there other components as well that you would address?
There's social media is one, and well, I'm going to say it's one, but it's like
it's a bunch.
It's a bunch. So like there's really those three buckets. So email, your website, which this is like your hub, your email list, right, and your social media, and they all kind of work together. So a platform is more like kind of like if you blur your eyes and just like look at all those three things together, like they encompass your platform. It's a Venn diagram. The three things in that thing in the center, and that can be different. Like different parts can be bigger for different people.
Right.
But it all adds up to your platform.
Okay. So let's say I was brand new and I just started teaching, and I was kind of, 6 months in and realizing that nobody knows where to find me and I have no idea how to set up a website. I think for a lot of people, the assumption is I'm going to have to spend a lot of money. I'm going to have to hire somebody. I'm going to have to explain it and understand what it is that I want to do, and I don't. And so it becomes really overwhelming. And I think people put off building good, simple, storage space websites for much longer than they need to because they're a little overwhelmed. How would you approach that client? How would you approach someone who's like, man, now what?
Well, I would say that build some sort of website. Like you just have to have something, because that shows that you're a professional. So a lot of people think you can have a Facebook page, and that's fine. So in the author community, people say they don't judge a book by its cover, like because authors very often don't consciously judge a book by its cover. But readers really do, either consciously or subconsciously. And it's the same with a health and wellness professional. You could just have a Facebook page, and that's fine for some people. And it's fine if they find you there and they never look for your website. But a lot of people want to find out more, and they'll look on your about. Like if you go to your Facebook page and they look for that, or where's the link, right? And if they don't find it, then they might Google you. And if they don't find it, then they're like, oh, well, he or she's not very professional, maybe not serious about this, or they're just starting out or something. So you have to have something. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just has to be somewhat modern looking, and and just do its job. Say what you are, say what you offer, and just be there. Right. So it's really simple to set up something like that.
What are your favorite? Do you have a favorite build it yourself website provider? Well,
I'm torn, honestly, because like I use WordPress, and I use like a free plugin. Like WordPress is free, but the hosting. So like you have to get hosting so that's like the biggest expense, and buying your domain, which is really cheap. And so you buy the domain, you buy your hosting, it's not that expensive. It's going to be cheaper than using like Squarespace or Wix or something like that. But it seems a little bit more complicated. So I use a free tool called Elementor, which makes it similar to like drag and drop, like you would get in Squarespace or Wix or
Weebly.
Yeah. I don't like that one that much. Yeah. I would rank them from a the most functionality you can possibly get, WordPress, because it has so many things, right? But it's a little bit more complicated. Then Squarespace, then Wix, and then there's a lot of these other ones. Like
I think there are quite a lot of sort of new ones have come out in the last few years. Sorry, I'm positioning myself to better facilitate.
Well, you show the cat, because it's like as long as you're talking about a cat, you have to show the cat.
Oh, yeah. There's the cat. Cat is the superstar of my life at the moment.
Is that a calico?
Yeah. Her name is Lily. Lillian von Snugglesworth III, and I'm her Nana. I'm her cat Nana.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yes.
I feel like there are quite a number of these new build it yourself websites, and that might be one of the things that throws people off and makes it a bit more complicated, is like, I don't know how to choose.
Yeah. Well, it's hard but I would say that one of the easiest ones to do, like if you're going to pay somebody to do it, I would say WordPress, because if you're going to do it yourself, you might want to start with Squarespace. And if you outgrow it, you can outgrow it. Yes, it will cost you more, but you also can do most of it yourself. And if you hire somebody to fine tune it for you, it won't be as expensive as doing, but it's an ongoing expense that's more than your WordPress hosting, right?
And is it reasonably straightforward? You get to the point where you've oh geez, now my lighting's going to go terrible because the sun's coming up. Is it reasonably easy to migrate from Squarespace to WordPress? You get to that point where you're like, I need more functionality.
No.
I need to move.
No, it's not. It's not very easy to migrate from one platform to another. Like there will be like a lot of copy and paste and recreating things because, functionally they're so different.
Right.
They're so different.
So it makes sense then to future pace yourself a little bit and spend maybe a little bit of money to say, okay, I may only need a little tiny website this year, but in 2 years, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to need more. So if you're doing anything more than the most basic, this is who I am, this is where you can find me, it probably makes sense to go with WordPress than go with something that's got that functionality to grow into.
Yeah, it kind of like if you're going to do like Squarespace, I have some of my clients who use Squarespace, and they look really good, and it integrates it. Squarespace, I don't know if they own Square, like the swiper card, but like they're integrated with them, and you can get a deal where they're both together. It makes it very easy. So if you're doing classes, you can hook them together. You can use Square on WordPress as well. So there's integrations there as well. But sometimes it's, if your goal is to not just be a teacher, but like you're not going to be having a membership, or you're not an active blogger. I mean, there's the biggest downside to Square is like sometimes you'll see something on somebody else's website, Squarespace, and you'll be like, I want to do that. And you're like, well, you can't, because it's like that's a WordPress thing.
Right.
Like one of the biggest things is, people hate them, but they're very effective. The pop-up, right? So you do the pop-up. There are ways to do them on Squarespace, but it's not as obvious how to do it. But you can technically do it. There's not as many options for it. So like with WordPress, you can, I want a pop-up that does exactly this thing, and you can find all sorts of ways to do it. In Squarespace, it's a little bit more limited. It's getting better, right? Right. So I would say, and if you want to customize things down the road, like let's say your business is growing and you really want, like if everyone's seen the Nutritious Movement website, there's like so many things, right? So that's built on WordPress, and it's got so many things that you can do there. You probably would not be able to do that on Squarespace. You could get the same functionality, but it would not look anything like that. It would not be as well integrated. Or if you're Yoga Tune-Up, right? So Yoga Tune-Up, that's amazing. Built on WordPress. Right? So like the biggest slice of the pie when it comes to websites is WordPress worldwide.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's just so much functionality.
So there are a few people here. Do you guys have any questions? Is there something specific that you would like to know about how to improve your existing website or what to do in order to get to building a website. Is there something Roland can clear up for you if you're like, I don't even know what I don't know? And while people are thinking about that, I have my lovely daughter, Olivia, is my background assistant. Olivia, could you put up those 2 links that I sent you to Roland, the websites that Roland has worked on? And that way, if you're thinking, because here's the deal is Roland will help you with your website if you're in need of a little assistance. So you can go and take a look at the work that he has done. I'm assuming Olivia is there somewheres. Olivia is active. So yeah, those will show up in a minute. And that way you can just take a look at sort of how Roland lays stuff out and what the functionalities are of those websites.
So let me mention real quick, there's like a couple of things that people make mistakes with when they're websites, because there's so many free websites that you can get, but most of them are blog focused, right? And when you go to a blog, it's a little bit confusing, but there's WordPress.com, which is a free blog system, like Blogger, Blogspot, Tumblr, like these are like free blogging platforms. And then there's WordPress hosted stuff, which is the one that you can customize more. And so I really don't recommend anyone use the free one or even the paid one on WordPress.com, because it's very limited what you can do. I mean, and people can tell. So when you go there, it's really focused on being a blogger. Right. And unless you want to be an active blogger, then I really don't recommend. And if you really want to be an active blogger and you want to make money somehow through blogging, I really don't recommend it. Okay.
Especially if really what you are is a movie teacher.
I know. There's just no way to move up. There's like no way to move up. You can't integrate a lot of things into them. And when you can integrate them, they don't really work as well as they would on WordPress hosted or self-hosted, like when you are paying for somebody to host it, or on Squarespace or even Wix. So you'll see a lot of people who have what's clearly a free version of Wix. Like Squarespace only offers the free version for like a couple of weeks. So like you don't run into this. Like, but
I didn't realize that.
Yes, you have a trial where you can set it up and see how you like it and play around, right? But then after that,
you have to pay.
Right. But with Wix, you can get one that's free, but it won't have but it says everywhere, it has things all over the place. That's like, I think it might have ads that show up, and that's the problem with WordPress.com too. There will be ads, and you really don't want ads. You want to be advertising yourself or things you support, or like if you're an affiliate or something, you want to advertise those things. You don't want to have like dental floss showing like ads or worse, showing up in your as an ad, especially they're popping up all over the place. Sometimes it's super crazy. That's the cost of free, right?
Right. Yeah.
Also, it will often say this website is from Wix, and they'll have like a thing or banner across the top, right? And that's also a sign that you're not serious, right? Because you're not paying that little bit to have your own website. So so the other big thing that I see with websites is that people will they put too much on them. Like there's like, I have to have you go to the homepage and it's not clear that you want them to do. Like somebody goes to your website, there's like one thing you want them to do, like one or two things you want them to do. There's like the primary thing, which is, right, if you're a teacher, you probably want them to take your class or sign up for your coaching or something, right? And then if they're not ready yet, you want to give them a way to keep in touch with you, an enticing way, like you're on your email list, right? Yeah.
And that's, yeah.
And you don't want
So
to distract them with other things like, oh, I am also on Instagram. And I'm also, because they'll go, oh, I'll just follow this person on Instagram. Well, how many people do you follow on Instagram you almost never see again? Or you're like, oh, like that's not enough. Like it's great, but they can follow you on Instagram later. Like, so give them like, here's the primary thing you want them to do. They keep scrolling down. They're not quite sure. Give them an enticing reason to sign up for your email list.
yeah. And then put your social media down at the bottom.
Yeah. And then once they start, like if they're like, well, I don't want to do any of those things, then they'll start poking around the about or the contact and stuff like that. That's when you can have all those other things. Or if you are a blogger, you can have, blog at the top, and they'll go click and see what kind of stuff you write. You're right. Yeah. But you don't want to distract them. Statistically speaking, people will only do one thing. Like you can have one primary call to action, and the other ones need to be very subtle and designed to be like the last ditch effort.
Right. Yeah. So that's a nice little segue of how these things connect. So websites and email lists, they're both a functional part of your business plan, but there is this moment where they intersect, where you have this appealing reason for them to get on your newsletter list, and that thing is hosted on your website, where hopefully they're stumbling across your website because it's ranking so high in its SEO. And then here, here's a free class, or here's a downloadable exercise list. Oh, and Olivia's just popped up those 2 links, so you can pop over. Not right now. This is not your current call to action. This is a later thing. But a couple of places where you can see Roland's work in terms of his website building. But so you've got your website. You've kind of figured that out. You've figured out whether you're doing it yourself or you're hiring somebody to help you. You've figured out your freebie. And so that's content creation, which is a different subject that we will talk about another day. But you've got a nice little functional plugin that has your pop-up that says, hey, want to learn about this, or do you need more time, or do you need more energy, or whatever the thing is, where the only sensible answer is yes, I do want more of that or less of the other. And then that thing leads to, oh, I'm sorry, that's my phone. And then that leads to your email list. And so let's shift subjects to, what do you need to know about email lists?
Excellent. I will say that if you absolutely hate pop-ups, that's fine, right? So they do work. But the reason we usually hate pop-ups is because of the way people do pop-ups. Like I was on a site, I checked out an author's website the other day for him, and he had, like, as soon as you get there, there's a pop-up. Like, I don't even know this person yet. Like, why would I, right? So then I dismiss the pop-up, and you can never get back. Like, that was your one chance, right?
Yeah.
So it was super annoying. He had the pop-up to where it was the same, the X was the same color as the graphic, so it was harder to close out of it. So like, this just makes people mad. So they'll just close the whole thing, right?
And then you just lose them entirely.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They'll never come. I mean, most people only go to a website one time. Like, if you teach classes and they're your regular customer, they will go multiple times. But then they're your regular customer, and like, you probably already have them on your list, right? Yeah. But when people check you out, they usually do it one time.
Yeah.
And right. So a pop-up is, if you don't like pop-ups, that's fine. I would encourage you to try them, but implement them in a smart way, which is typically you give it 45 seconds, 60 seconds, something like that. If they're still on your site reading for 60 seconds, they might want more from you, right? So that's okay to do it then. Make it easy to dismiss, right? And also have other links on your site so they can, like, another box to sign up. So they're like, you know what? I'm reading a blog post, 60 seconds. I'm not really ready to sign up for this thing. Get to the bottom, and they're like, that was a great article. I want more of this. There is a place to sign up for the email list. Now I want it, right? So that's one way. The other way is called the exit intent pop-up. And what that is, I'm sure we've all seen this. Like, you're like, okay, I've read this thing. That was pretty good. And then you go to click to some other, you go to your taskbar or your bookmarks or whatever. And as soon as you do, a pop-up appears, right? So this pop-up detects that you're about to leave the website. And it's like at the last minute, it's like, hey, would you like to sign up, right? So those work pretty well as well, and they're a lot less annoying.
I like that. I like that. And I think for a lot of us in the movement world, part of what makes this all challenging is we tend as a group to be not very salesy.
Mm-hmm.
And the pop-up that assaults your eyeballs 3 seconds after you've hit the website can feel a bit aggressive. And I don't particularly love those. But the exit strategy, if somebody's stuck around for a little bit and has consumed some of your content, I think that for lots of people is going to feel more like, oh, hey, do you want to extend our friendship rather than be my friend?
And a lot of these mailing list services, you can do multiple things. So like, I usually do, like something like 49, I don't know why 49 seconds, but I pick 49 seconds and, or if they scrolled 75% down, that's another one you can choose.
Yeah.
And then exit intent, right? And then the last thing I do is I usually have it set to only show up, like once they've dismissed it, they won't see it for another 2 weeks. So if they do come back, like tomorrow or later on today, they're not going to keep seeing that pop. They don't have to keep making the pop-up go away over and over again.
Right.
It's only every couple of weeks. So that's not too bad. And from a statistical standpoint, these pop-ups really do work. But there are if you really hate them, there are other ways to do it, just by having multiple ways to sign up, right, for your list, and then providing good content.
Yes. So what would you rather go to next? Would you rather talk about those different ways of getting people onto your email list, or would you like to talk about some of the technicalities, like who are your favorite email providers and stuff like that?
I have something before that. How about, why do you even need an email list? Because
yes, that is an excellent question. Why
because
do
a
you need
lot
an
of
email list?
people, so I hear this a lot, both from my author clients and from my health coaching teacher clients. Like, they'll say, I'm air quote, right? I hate email. I hate getting emails. I get too many emails. I'm not going to send people. I don't want to send people emails either because I hate them. That's fine. But your audience is not you, right? So your audience, if they want to sign up for email, they will. If they don't, they won't. Like, if they hate email too, they won't sign up for it. So Not a big deal. So that's why you make it, only every 14 days, like you'll give them an easy way to dismiss it. And then you rely on other ways to communicate with them. But if you've been on Facebook for a while, like I have, you'll remember the good old days of when you had a Facebook page and people would like it and everybody would see your posts. You would post something, everybody would see it. And then one day, it was like the Facebook apocalypse. Like, it went from like, oh, how come like 85% of my people were seeing my stuff yesterday and only 5% are seeing it today. I think it was like maybe 20%, like, right? Yeah. Facebook has made it worse over time. But at the time, it was 15, like went from like 85 down to 20%. And people are like, what, my business is ruined, right? And and for a lot of them, it was true because that was the only way they were keeping in touch with their customer.
People.
Yeah. And it could be worse. People get kicked off of Facebook and then you lose all of those people. Right.
Yeah. You are not in control of the content you put out on social media. You do not own it anymore.
Yeah. And imagine if you had millions of people on your Twitter followers and then one day you lost your Twitter account. Right.
We're not going to turn this into politics, but yes, that could happen.
But like that happens. It doesn't just happen to politicians. Yeah. It happens to actors, directors,
and it can happen by accident.
Yeah, people can
report.
You
don't even have to be.
You can have an enemy or a nemesis, right? And they report you, and you can lose your account temporarily. Maybe you'll get it back. Maybe you won't, right? But if you also have as many of them as possible in your email list, then you have another way to reach them. If you do lose your account, let's say there's no evil intent. Let's say Facebook just goes away.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, hey, everybody, I know you were following me on Facebook. It's going away. Follow me over here. Right. If you don't have them on an email list to tell them where you're active, then it's going to be really hard. Right. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. So that's the thing. So it's like, do not, build your business on somebody else's land, right?
Yeah. Your
Yeah.
email list is your own land.
Yeah. And people say that, oh, if I'm on MailChimp, that I could get my MailChimp account canceled. That's true. But you have that list. The list is yours forever. Like you export it and you import it into MailerLite or ActiveCampaign or Constant Contact or whoever you like.
Yeah.
Right. You can have that forever. It's yours. Yeah. So and they've done studies. A lot of, I've looked at many that are done by people who are not mailing list providers, because mailing list providers are obviously going to say mailing is king, but many studies have by like TechCrunch and like these other have reported on these things where there's just such a higher it's very easy to casually like somebody's page or follow somebody's page, follow somebody on Twitter. But it takes trust to some degree to give your email address out.
Yeah.
So they trust you a little bit more, and then they're seeing these things, and people, it's a personal thing. Like they're getting your email into their inbox, even though they know that this is like sent to everybody, like a whole bunch of people on your list to some degree, because they've invited you there and you're sharing it with them. You're building a relationship with them that's different from, and people are used to clicking on something to buy or clicking on something to do it where they're not on, on
social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I hear the same thing from a relationship perspective. Like you're hearing it from kind of the technical, and I don't like getting emails, and I don't want to open them, and it's frustrating. And I get it from but I don't know what to say, and it feels fake. Mm-hmm. I don't want to send out emails, and I always say, just like for me, my newsletter is like a love letter. It's really like I am writing directly to people I know who are on my email list. And that's an important part of the energy. And I think we get annoyed by the emails that only come out when there's something to sell. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. Don't only send emails when you want to sell something. Or the ones that they're clearly just, I don't actually care who's receiving this. I'm just blurting out some information at you. It's a bit like the pop-up, be my friend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As opposed to actually sharing stuff that is important to you, and email gives you the opportunity to share a little bit more personally, because you know who that email is going to, and you don't actually know that on social media.
Yeah.
And I think those are important components to why email is actually can be a useful tool in building and holding a relationship with the people who want your stuff, and letting them know what it is that you have in a way that is, authentic and non-intrusive and non-assaultive.
Not smarmy.
Yes, not smarmy. Yes, the categories, not smarmy.
Not smarmy. There are a couple different, it kind of depends, like what you would write depends on what it is you do what it is you're doing for them, right? So if you are a movement teacher that has classes every week, either local or online, and that's what people are on your list to find out when your classes are and to sign up for your classes and to get help with those classes, all those kind of things, they are on your list to get your emails regularly.
Because they need that information.
Yeah, they might not want to get one every week, but they might not want to get one like every day. But like if you every week release the next schedule or something like that, or say this class is filling up, like you can get on a schedule and make it fairly simple. Now, in between that, you can, or at the beginning, after the class, like you can, in the same email, you can build the relationship. You can build trust by linking to articles that that are online that you think your reader, your ideal student, or patient, or
client, or whatever your word is,
would help them, right? You build trust.
Including links to YouTube videos of your, this is what's coming up, this is what we're going to focus on this week, so that they get a taste for the people who've maybe only taken 1 or 2 classes, they can have more sense of what you offer, right? And that kind of thing also builds that like, trust, know factor.
Yeah, exactly.
And those are easy to put, like, I think at this point, all email providers make it incredibly simple to embed code. And if you told me 5 years ago that I would be able to fling around phrases like embed code and actually know what they mean, I would have said that's not possible. I embed code all the time. And I am the least techie human on the face of the planet. Me
Nice.
and Lillian von Snugglesworth, we are equally technical.
Excellent.
And
but you have thumbs, so it's much easier for you. You have the advantage there.
I do have an advantage because I have thumbs.
Yeah. She's like, I have a thumb. It's just way up here.
It's just here. Hi there, kitty kitty.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more challenging if you are not a weekly movement teacher, right? So if you're if you're doing online courses, for instance, or your class is always the same, like it's like you're not really changing much, it's just regular class, it feels a little bit weird to send out things more often because in theory people would know. But this is where you can write blog posts if you're a blog post person, or if you are if you make YouTube videos, you can send to those. You can do other things to show your expertise, show your talents, build a relationship. But yeah, if you're the type of, like, if you've migrated away from teaching, like in person or online classes, to where you're doing a lot of, or everything is like online courses, and they only hear from you like every 5 months because you have a new course launch, right? Then it's not so good. So you have to do other things to build this relationship. It's okay if they know that that's all you do, but they're going to want to have trust built up over time. Otherwise, they're going to, oh, here's an email from Jenny. She must have something to sell.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want that to be people's response when they see your stuff come into their inbox, is like, oh, they're trying to sell me something. You really want their response to be, oh, there's going to be, there are people whose emails I don't buy stuff. I just love their emails. Like they're not selling me things all the time.
Right.
When they do sell me something, I'm much more likely to pay attention because I really like their podcast. I like their blog. I like their YouTube videos. I like that they share other interesting things. I like that they recommend really good books. That there's a conversation that happens every time they send me an email, and it doesn't have to be long. My emails tend to be long because I'm very yucky and I'm not very good at editing out my thoughts. But it can be, it can be short. If you don't love the idea of writing a lot, you can write a little short email with a link to something that you've created, or that something someone else that you really like has created. And that makes for a great email. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Absolutely. One of the best tips that I got years ago was, when you're writing, you're like, I just don't know. People say, I just don't know what to write. It's like, seems so awkward to write this thing. I'm writing to like a 1,000 people. We hope 1,000 people, right? But like, it's probably like, it could be anywhere from like 10 to 20 to 100, right? So
that reminds me, that's something I'd like to talk about next.
Okay. But your email should be to one person, right? So I don't know if you talked about the customer avatar before, customer profile, but there's like somebody that you have in your mind that is your ideal client, patient, reader, whatever, right? So give them a little persona. Like, it seems kind of silly, but give them a name, right? And cut out a picture out of a magazine or print something off that's like, oh, this is what this person looks like, and just like you could stick it in a little frame or whatever that you only get out on email day, and you prop it up and you're like, okay, Betty, dear Betty, right?
Dear Betty.
And then, and you write this Dear Betty email, and whether you write it in something else or you write it right in the email program, whatever, then at the very end, you take out the Betty part, because then it's like you either have your email customized to like use your, if you're collecting first names too, you can put that in there, or you can just say, dear friend, or, like, hey buddy, like whatever you're like, you can be super casual, or you can just say, hey, some people
Hey,
just go, hey,
hey, you.
exclamation point.
Like
Hey, you.
half the things I say to my actual people in my personal life are like, hey, you, how's it going?
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
one of the things, and like, it's like a tiny little thing, but remove the S, like instead of saying, hey friends, say, hey friend, right? It's because
Mhm.
they may see right through it, but subconsciously, like they're like,
It,
oh, it's me, not to us.
yeah,
It's less, so but they know, because everyone knows on some level. Um, yeah, but it helps a little bit psychologically.
yeah, yeah. So here's another one of the objections that I often hear about. I don't want to do an email list is, but there are only going to be 10 people on my list. Why bother?
Well, because
And I know I
those
have an
10,
answer to that, but I want to hear
okay.
your answer to that.
Well, first of all, those 10 people are just your first people, right? So, and when those are your clients, right? So when you only have 10 people, these are your fans. And they are quickly going to become your super fans.
Yeah,
And what do super fans do? They share, right?
exactly.
They invite other people, right? They're early adopters too,
Yeah,
right? So like when you only have 10 people, like once you get to be 100, like have 100 or 1,000, you can tell those first 10 people, because you know who those 10 people are. You can find out in your list or whatever. And you can say, do you know that you were the first 10? Like, I value you so much. You've been here for the very beginning. And you highlight them and you make them feel special. And then it just, you have a deeper relationship with these people. There will always be people on your list, no matter how big your list is, that you'll have a deeper relationship with and a
yeah,
shallower relationship with. But
yeah,
these deeper relationship people they grow, the relationship grows over time. They trust you more, they share more, they invite other people more.
yeah,
And so they have value greater than their number.
yeah. There's something called evangelist marketing, which is where instead of you are having to tell people about your stuff, which for lots of us can be a challenging thing. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel authentic. It feels icky. Evangelist marketing is when your super fans, that those 10 people who were first on your list, those people who come to your class every single week and text you after the class and say, that was amazing. My shoulder feels so much better. Those people do your marketing for you. They tell their sister, they tell their friend, they post about your class on Facebook, not in a salesy way, but just in a, oh, hey, I took this awesome class today.
Mm-hmm.
And those,
Yeah.
you want to cultivate those people because you probably love them. Like those are the people who you feel really good when you're teaching them. What you're teaching really works for them. It's a really positive relationship. But having them on an email list helps to foster their sense of inclusion, their sense
Mm-hmm.
that you are, as much as they love you, you love them right back. And
Yeah.
I think that's important. I think that's one of the things about an email list. If you can kind of flip it in your head from something that you are inflicting on people and you're forcing them to open something in their inbox, and it becomes about, this is how I get to share with you how much I love that you follow me and how honored I am that you participate in my class or my online course, that you open this email. Um, and that, I think for some people that can change the resistance
I
to
think so.
doing email.
I think so. Yeah, and all this being said about email, there's like no reason to like social media is still fine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but social media is a great way to get people onto your website, get people onto your email list, and keep building that relationship the way they want to do it. So, like that's why I said you have this Venn diagram: your website, your social media, and your email list.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest thing that I teach people is not to rely on social media and not to spend more time on social media just because, like you can be on social media for very good reasons, right? Finding new customers, finding new clients, finding new students. But being on there more probably doesn't get you any more. Like you can, like a few minutes a day is probably enough to get your 80% So that extra, 20 minutes of your effort is 80%, right? That extra 80% is not going to get you that extra. So
someone's just left a comment saying that's very good advice.
Yeah. So what I recommend, and I know we're kind of a little bit coming towards the end, but I tell people to be on social media, be found on social media. You should be found everywhere, but you don't have to be active everywhere, right? So like, I'm very not active on Twitter. But if you go to my Twitter, I do have a Twitter account, and you can find me, and you can find my website. You can find that. So if somebody's looking for you, it's again, like if they're looking for you, they'll go to their favorite place, and you want to be found. But then once you're found, if you're not very active there, you can say, well, hey, join me on, if you find you on Twitter, they can say, hey, join me on Facebook, because here's my link to my page.
That's where you're actually going to find me being active.
Yeah. So that kind of stuff. It's called the social media outpost. Yeah. So
that's a really good point. For those of us who try to limit our social media time, you can absolutely just kind of have a placeholder on the ones that you don't want to use. And then if somebody wants to find you, there's 5 posts that include, a good graphic and a nice little video, useful links to your website, and a director to, you may not be on Instagram. That's where you're going to find some cool stuff. But you can also find me on YouTube, and you can also, hit my website.
Yeah.
And then don't go to Twitter 15 times a day.
That's right. And all of these sites, or most of the sites, now have like some sort of a pinned post type of a thing, or an announcement. So you can post something that's good, that helps people, and then pin it, and then it's going to stay at the top. And then you don't have to, that's when they go to it, they're going to see that first, and they're going to do that. And then usually, like with Twitter and Facebook, at least, there can be a link in there that takes them to wherever you really want to be, whether it's your website or email list or whatever. Instagram's a little bit challenging, but
it's fun.
It's easier to be active on Instagram.
It is. So Roland, I know you have somewhere you need to be in 10 minutes. So I'm going to just wrap up by saying that Roland is also going to be a contributing member to the course that's coming up in February, the Roadmap, Movement Teachers Roadmap, because I think this stuff is important. I think this stuff is part of the roadmap, it's part of the journey, and it's part of getting to your destination, which is presumably to have a resilient, long-lasting, rewarding career where parts of it don't drain you. And I think for a lot of people, the feeling is, I love the teaching, that's the beauty. The beast is these technical details, and I find them really draining. And it would be lovely if you could get to a place where that wasn't the case. But that's hard to just spontaneously have happen. And so Roland is going to be contributing a bonus module to the course, where we're going to dive in deeper to this stuff, and you'll get some good actionable, this is how to do it, information to help you get yourself set up, or to refine what you already have and make it a little more pro. And of course, you can always reach out to Roland in order to work with him if you're like, oh, but actually I don't want to do this, I want someone to help me do this. So Olivia, if you could pop up that first link I sent you of Roland's contact information, that would be great, so that you can...
I do help people individually, right? So I work, if you have specific things you need help with, then you might only need help with your email list or something like that. I'm happy to help with that. But if you're trying to do the whole thing, right, then what I've been doing is I've had a couple of group programs, because majority of them are everyone's unique, but all of those things are still there. You still have your website, you still have your email list, you still have your social media. And my philosophy is that you can put your platform on cruise control. I don't say autopilot, because an autopilot implies that you can get it going and you just keep going, but cruise control, because we've all been taking a long trip, and you're like, you still kind of have to pay attention, but you can relax a little bit. You can sit back, you can take your foot off the gas. And do what you want to listen. You can listen to your music. You can talk to the person in the passenger seat, and that's the philosophy there, because you can get your platform set up to where you have systems in place, and then you feed new things into the system, whether it's your new schedule for classes or whether it's a new blog post or whether it's sharing on social media. So much of this you can either automate or semi-automate, and or put systems in place that make it easy, because the biggest problem that we have is just not knowing what to do, or being overwhelmed by, I have to spend an hour a day on Facebook to promote this stuff, right? And then you get sucked in and you end up spending 3 hours.
So challenging, that part.
Yeah. So putting it on cruise control is a great way to go. So I did 2 groups last year, and I'm looking to start a new group this year.
Excellent.
Yeah. So I think that's like, if you're interested in that, I always make them customized to the group, right? And you have a special group here. So like, and you are I've had a couple of individuals that I've talked to, but I would love to hear from you. You can sign up for a free consultation. I will look at your website that you have. I will find out what you need. I will give you advice. And if that's what you need, that's what you'll leave with,
that's
right?
What you need.
But if you're interested, I'll also tell you about the group that I'm starting and like how it's going to work, and see if that's something that we would be a good fit for as well. So yeah. And that's at eatmovelive52.com/ what did I say?
Move Smart. It's coming up in a moment.
Move Smart. Yeah.
Yes, it will be there momentarily. So yeah, I love the small group format, because often there's like questions you don't think of yourself, but somebody else thinks of it. And there's kind of like a feeding of inspiration and information. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's been really nice. And what I like the most about it is that it's more, I learned this with my health coaching clients. I used to do one-on-one, and I still do some one-on-one. But I wish, even though you make more money with the one-on-one, I wish my one-on-one clients would rather be, the guys never want to be one-on-one, never want to be in the groups, but the women like to be in the groups, right? I don't know that I'm not going to pigeonhole everybody, but that's just has been my experience. Not one of my guys has ever wanted to be in a group. But I wish they could be, because you get support, you get the camaraderie, right? Like you said. They'll ask a question, somebody else answers, and they're like, I'm not in this alone. Wow, no other people think these things, right? But it's also much more cost effective and time efficient too. So like if you meet once a week with a group, like I can help more people for less, and you can get in and get the help you need for less as well. And then you have 24/7 support in the group, and you have, replays of all the events and all that kind of stuff. So it really works great. And it's been a great model that I started with my group coaching, with my health coaching clients, took it to my author groups as well. And now I'm doing it with movement teachers as well, or nutrition teachers, any kind of health related stuff. Like,
body workers. It's great.
Energy workers, like I've had all sorts of people in there. It's just they all, if you want to help people, then like that's like the perfect type of, there's not a good way to say that.
It's a great cohort, and it's interesting. I think it's really interesting. So I do the same thing in terms of my coaching, movement teachers, but also body workers and energy workers, and it creates this really lovely sort of diversity within the same bucket of interests. And you get like really great support for each other, and enthusiasm when something's going well, and support when something is being challenging. But then there's also this like ever so slightly different perspective on the same thing that everybody benefits from. I love small group
It's
stuff.
also been nice because they share each other's work. So because like our business is not really a zero-sum game, especially when we're local. We're doing stuff local too. Like you're local in Canada, I'm local down here in Colorado. Like I can share your stuff, and like you can share my stuff, and it's
so good.
Or if like I had a massage therapist, restorative exercise specialist, and then I had somebody who's doing yoga with for ASL, right? Like they're totally willing to share each other's stuff. They like don't compete with each other. They support each other, and also when you share other people's work, you build trust within your own audience as well.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
they realize, oh, this person's not precious. They're not a narcissist. They are just part of this. They're
They're
part
just
of this big community, and
part
they
of the
want to
group.
help me by sharing things. Yeah.
Yeah, which is really good.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Roland. You head off and do your thing. I'm gonna just quickly share the I'm gonna get Olivia to pop up also the link for the webinar, which is coming up, masterclass coming up in February. There are three options, and we'll be talking about 3 simple steps to feel more confident in your teaching and end up with a really strong, confident, creative, clear approach to being a movement teacher.
Everyone needs that.
Everybody needs that. It is true. And you know what? There's some really basic steps to just being able to surge forward. And actually, Roland, you were one of my inspirations for kind of how the direction of the course is. I posted a question in the group a few weeks ago about like, give me one word about how people are feeling. And I was really expecting to hear a lot of overwhelmed, fatigued, and all that kind of stuff. And what I got was a bunch of really positive stuff. But you said excited.
Oh, good.
And it's really cool to be able to create content for people who are excited to be moving forward. And still to be able to support people who are feeling overwhelmed and bring them into excited. So
Yeah, I agree.
yay.
And that, like, for your students, like that carries on to them, like, because like people are following you because they want your help,
Mm-hmm.
right? Doesn't matter
Yeah.
who you are, like on social media or email, people are following us because they want our help. So help them.
Yeah,
Give them
exactly.
give them what they want.
Exactly. And give it to them in ways that they can retain and hold on to, like an email
Digestible.
or a website.
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
This
All
was
right. You
fun.
have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for coming. I always love chatting with you. It's the best.
You too.
Give Galena a big hug for me and go and enjoy this first day of the new 2021.
I will do that. And thank you for sharing your cat as well.
Yeah, she's pretty cute. She's pretty cute. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Bye. Thanks for coming. So if you are watching the replay later, you can still pop questions into the comments below, and Roland and I will go in over the next couple of days and pick up any questions you have, and we'll answer them later. Bye.